Welcome to the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage, where rude mechanicals do magic.
Hello, I'm Bronze Age, Director of the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage. And in the lab, we repair lighting and furniture. And sometimes we get a job where we have to do both. What we have here today is an arts and crafts style floor lamp with tables. Now, I have to emphasize the word style because just like if you want to sell a brown beverage, you can call it chocolatey, but it doesn't have to contain any chocolate. And if I were to say this is an arts and craft table lamp, there'd be plenty of people jumping up to explain to me all the reasons it's not arts and craft. But arts and craft style, it certainly is. Now the style goes by a lot of different names: arts and crafts, craftsman, mission, and even stickly. And back in the day, each of those had their own individual distinct features. Now, some people say that this was a reaction to very ornate Victorian furniture with all the carvings and the scroll work and stuff like that. And other people say it was a reaction to mass-produced, fairly cheap, low-quality furniture mill pieces. And probably all of that is true. What they all had in common was straight lines and 90-degree corners. You won't see scroll work, filigrees, or anything like that on arts and crafts, mission, or stickly pieces. Now I have no idea how old this piece is. I do notice that the tabletops are made with chipboard covered with regular wood. The braces here, they've been reinforced with screws at each of the points, but they were originally installed with just staples, uh, which indicates it was probably made in a furniture mill somewhere. Now this is where the original light switch was, which is kind of an amateur way to do it. Sort of makes me think that possible this could have been made in somebody's basement or garage shop. Something like this could even be out of a high school wood shop. The tabletop is made with these veneered panels, which they have tried to make kind of symmetrical. Each of the little triangles, this grain pattern matches this one. This grain pattern matches that one. And so there's a good bit of artistic effort put into this. The post is made from two pieces that are cut out and then glued together like this. And the original hardware for the lighting is completely gone, which is a shame because that would have been just one more clue as to where this thing actually came from. First thing I have to do is figure out what kind of treatment I'm going to put up here on the top to turn this back into a lamp. Now I don't want it to leave looking unfinished, or worse, poorly finished. And arts and crafts furniture was known for not having a lot of ornamentation. One thing they did have, though, was something called the crown tenon. And that's just basically a little pyramid cut on the end of a tenon. It would stick up through a tabletop or a desktop for no purpose other than just for you to see it and look at it right there. And it's fairly easy to saw off one of these on the end of a long piece, but I don't have a long piece of walnut. All I have is these thin parts. So the next step is figuring out a way to cut a little pyramid out of this. So what I'm going to do, take a piece of scrap wood, cut my walnut down to the size I need, and everybody's favorite mess in the shop, hot glue, just to hold that down on there. Now I take it to the Ryobi 10-inch miter saw. It's going on 30 years old. It's a generation before all the sliding miter saws. So its capacity is kind of limited, but I don't seem to be able to break it or wear it out. So it's going to stay until one or the other happens. The blade is tilted at 15 degrees, and I've got a stop block for the repeat cuts. So let's see how it works. I'm going to leave it glued together while I finish doing the other finishing work on this. First, I've got to cut a flat spot on the top to give me clearance for the check ring. I always cut the large one first because that leaves me a nice center for the small hole that the pipe's going to go through. Now the lamp is mahogany, pretty sure it is, and this piece is walnut. And I have found that the best way to get a really good red mahogany look on walnut is to start off with a Sedona red base. I'll let that soak in for a while, wipe it down. Then I'll put a coat of real red mahogany on it. And what I'll come up with is something I think is going to be pretty close. But since this is actually an accent piece, it'll be okay if there's a little bit of contrast. I think I'm going to go with that. Now the light hardware is pretty straightforward. I'm going to use the regular captured ring socket that I always like to use on any of these projects. Harp saddle and a solid brass ring. And I'm leaving the old wire in place because it would be much easier to use to pull the new wire through. If I have to fish the new wire through there, that's really going to take a lot of time. This is going to be fastened down with a little hide glue and a couple of small wire brads, and we'll be ready to wire it. I've got it laid on its side so I can pull the wire, but I want to take a moment to point out a problem here. This is chipboard, and chipboard is made from wood chips mixed with glue, some kind of adhesive resin, and then it's compressed very, very tightly. And in the right conditions, the right circumstances, the right situation, it's very strong, probably stronger than plywood. However, it is very vulnerable to water damage because that wood is compressed so tightly that if it gets wet, it swells up and it will rip everything apart. And we end up with this situation here. What it looks like is something was spilled on the table, it ran over the edge, left this stain right here, and so this corner is coming apart. It's like this all the way down this side. The rest of it looks pretty good, but where we usually see this is in furniture where the chipboard is at the very bottom of it. People mopping or shampooing carpets or stuff, soaks it up like a sponge, and that's what you end up with. The new cord is going to be an SPT2 cord set. Comes with the molded plug on it, and it's noticeably larger than SPT1, but the wires are actually exactly the same size. The difference is the insulation is thicker, and that's what we use on floor lamps because you know it's going to be on the floor, get walked on, lots more harder use than a regular table lamp cord. Now to connect it, I could tape it together. But up at the top, I've got that fitting with that pipe nipple. And the SPT2 is just barely enough to slide through it without any trouble. And so when I get up there, if I'm depending on tape to hold this together, it'll just peel the tape off and it's going to come loose. So the alternative to that is just solder these two together and it'll make a nice small connection that should go right through the pipe. Sometimes a time-saving trick adds more time later on, but it's usually a good trade-off. Lamp wire is made up of many small strands of wire. That's what makes it flexible, doesn't kink. But the National Electrical Code says that stranded wires like this cannot be put underneath the screw terminals on any kind of device, especially a socket. And a cord set comes with the tip of the wire soldered like that. It's called tinning. And since I cut that off in order to pull this wire through the lamp, I'm going to have to re-tin them. And that's just a quick drop of solder on the end of each wire. Next, also to conform to code, I have to tie an underwriter's knot in the end of the wire. And the purpose of this is that if someone were to trip over the cord, it could not be pulled out from underneath those screw terminals. And the SPT cord is a little bit more difficult to work with. Now, on all lamp cords sold in North America, one side is smooth, and one side has a ridge. If you can't see it, you can actually feel it. And that's so that I know which wire goes where. We've got a brass colored screw and a silver colored screw. And the smooth wire always wraps around the brass colored screw. This is another safety feature. What it does is it ensures that what they call the neutral wire goes to the shell of the socket. And if you were to come into a dark room and somehow avoid tripping over the cord, and you went to turn on the lamp, and the lamp was missing a bulb, you might accidentally touch the shell. If you did, and the lamp is wired properly, you're not going to get shocked. You'd have to stick your finger all the way down to the inside, and the lamp would actually have to be turned on at the same time. This goes back a long way, and I don't know how much of a problem this actually was in real life, but all over the world, electrical standards were changed to make that less likely to happen. In the United States, just coming up with this ridged wires and smooth wires was enough so that a light socket from 1920 and a light socket from 2024 are interchangeable. No big deal in trying to repair old stuff because the new stuff fits exactly where the old stuff went. Now I get this all lined up properly. Slide this shell down on the base. And very carefully get the ring lined up. Well, this is Bronze Age for the Secret Underground Laboratory, and thank you for sitting through this video on woodworking and lamp rewiring at the same time. We really appreciate it if you would hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already. Comments, questions are very welcome. Anything about lighting, furniture repair, or whatever else is on your mind, I'm happy to answer. And again, thank you for watching.